It was midnight when I stepped out of my room and quietly made my way toward my brother-in-law's room. I had lost control over my emotions and was desperately seeking comfort. This had become a routine for me. Whenever the inner conflict in my heart and mind became unbearable, I would find a way to escape. That night was no different. I missed my husband terribly, but he wasn't here. For the past 5 years, he had been living in Dubai, and we could barely talk over the phone due to his busy schedule. He had gone there to resolve some financial problems. My desires had grown beyond what I could suppress. I often tried to control my emotions, but the loneliness and lack of attention were making it harder. I had made several subtle attempts to get closer to my brother-in-law, but he always ignored my advances. Years had gone by, and my husband never showed me any affection. It became increasingly difficult for me to restrain myself. After all, I'm only human, and I, too, long for love and attention. I was lost in my own world, unable to suppress my feelings. All I wanted was a bit of peace for my troubled heart. That night, found myself walking again toward my brother-in-law's room. In my mind, I had made a decision. I would live life on my terms and do whatever I wanted. I knocked on his door once again. A voice came from inside. "Who is it?" I replied. "It's me, Mana Hill." He said, "Go back. I don't want to talk to you." His response stung deeply, but I knocked again. There was no answer this time. I began pleading, telling him that I needed him. Still, he gave no response. I stood there for a long time, waiting, hoping he would open the door and help me calm the storm inside me. Eventually, he opened the door and let me in. As I stepped in, I asked, "Why didn't you open the door earlier?" My eyes were filled with tears and helplessness. I felt trapped in my own emotional turmoil. I was wearing clothes that clearly reflected my vulnerable state of mind. All I wanted was someone to help me, someone to bring peace to my aching heart. But he remained unwilling to do anything inappropriate. I looked at him. He was wearing a vest and appeared calm in his room. My emotions were out of control, but somewhere deep inside, I knew these were just my thoughts. Nothing real was going to happen. It felt like my life was caught in a storm, and I was stuck. In the middle of it, that moment made me realize how far I had drifted, and I finally woke up to the truth that I was heading down a dangerous and immoral path. When I came back to my senses, I realized the depth of my mistake. I was afraid that I may have angered God with my behavior. I stood alone, burdened by the weight of my sins and regrets. I was overwhelmed with shame, realizing too late that I had crossed a serious line. I was still in his room, trying once again to get his attention, when he suddenly said something that shattered me. He told me he had already recorded a video of me and planned to make it viral soon. He threatened that if I ever gave him another signal, he would show the video to my husband, and I would no longer be able to show my face to anyone. His words shook me to my core, and I finally began to understand the gravity of what I had done. I pleaded with him to forgive me and not to tell my husband anything, but he firmly stated that he would definitely show the video to my husband. Suddenly, I wasn't thinking about my desires anymore. I was thinking about my husband. What would happen if he left me? What would become of my life? I kept begging my brother-in-law, but he cursed at me and said, "You claim to love your husband, yet behind his back you do such things." Hearing such words from him was deeply painful. I had always considered him like an elder brother, but now my own poor decisions had brought me to this moment. I had no idea that my mistake could destroy my entire life, and now that destruction felt very near. He showed me the video-clear footage of me saying inappropriate things and behaving in a way I never imagined would be recorded. He had captured everything, and now he was planning to send it to my husband. My life was on the edge of a disaster. I fell at his feet, begging him not to do it. I cried and pleaded for mercy. But then he gave me a strange condition, one that left me speechless. He said he wouldn't show the video to my husband, but only if I agreed to fulfill one demand. I immediately nodded and said I was ready to do anything he asked. Said, "Bring me all the property documents of this house. One's your husband registered in your name." This condition was enormous for me. I hesitated, but the circumstances were terrifying, and the reason behind his demand was now turning into torture. I told him I would go to the bank the next morning and bring him the documents since the bank was located nearby. He warned me that until I brought those papers, he would keep the video safe and not show it to my husband. His words gave me temporary relief, and I rushed back to my room. I changed my clothes and sat there, crying over my fate. My husband had once told me that he registered this house in my name as a wedding gift. Now, how could I hand over that gift to someone else? This was a massive trial for me, and I had to find a way out. I couldn't let that video reach my husband, not at any cost. I didn't want his heart to break or for him to leave me. I truly loved him. Yes, those desires I had felt were fleeting and planted by the devil. The truth was, I had allowed myself to fall into sinful behavior, and in doing so, I had drifted far from God. I never realized how distant I had become from my faith, and how that distance had led me to ruin. Now that I was deep in that ruin, the reality hit me. I was doing things that were not only wrong, they were despised by God. I no longer had the courage to even look my brother-in-law in the eyes. He had always treated me like a sister. My husband had trusted him completely and left me in his care while he worked abroad. My brother-in-law never made me feel the absence of my own brother. He always tried to fulfill my needs, helped me, and supported me. But I, blindly misled by temptation, allowed evil to take hold of my thoughts. And now I was filled with nothing but regret. Sitting on my bed, I wept and remembered God. I kept asking him for forgiveness over and over. I didn't know what else to do. I needed to wake up early the next morning to get those documents from the bank. They weren't at home. Because of theft risks, I had stored them in a secure locker. Now, when they were urgently needed, I had no choice but to go in person and retrieve them. But then I learned something that added to my panic. Tomorrow was Saturday, followed by Sunday, and all banks would be closed for both days. That realization sent a wave of panic through my mind. I didn't know what to do now. Feeling helpless and scared, I returned home. My husband and I loved each other deeply. Our marriage was one of choice, not arrangement. We had met several times before our wedding and had built a relationship based on affection and understanding. My husband's name was Coram. We studied at the same university, and he was a year ahead of me. When we became friends, he was about to graduate. He was in his final semester while I was in my second last. The very first time I saw him, I felt an instant connection. And it was the same for him. We first met beneath a large shishim tree in the university lawn. I was standing with a group of senior boys and girls when Coram approached. Some of the seniors were teasing me and being inappropriate. Coram stepped in, defended me, and firmly told his classmates to stay away from me. He had a striking personality, a strong, well-built physique, and a face that drew attention effortlessly. The moment I saw him, I lost my heart, but I kept quiet. His standing up for me left a deep impression, and I thanked him before heading to my class. After Coram's intervention, his classmates backed off and didn't bother me again. I wanted to thank him properly, so I asked to meet during the break. We met at the canteen, where I expressed my gratitude. To my surprise, he offered me friendship right away. I was a little nervous and asked for some time to think about it. That night, I thought about it a lot and discussed it with my friends. They encouraged me, and my heart already leaned toward him. Eventually, I said yes. A few days later, our exams began, and after they ended, all the seniors, including Kuram, left the university. Now we no longer had to rely on campus to meet. He started calling me and asking to meet outside. I would often skip a lecture or two just to see him. Our meetings grew more frequent, and our love for each other deepened. When I reached my final year, I told Kuram to send a formal proposal to my family, as my parents had started discussing my marriage. But at the time, Kuram was unemployed and hadn't yet made any move. I began pressuring him. Eventually, at my insistence, he convinced his family to approach mine with a proposal. My parents were critical. They questioned how I could fall in love with someone who had no job and was still living off his father's wealth. They were skeptical about his ability to handle responsibilities in the long term and refused the proposal unless he secured a stable job. Their refusal terrified me. I feared losing Kuram forever. I shared this fear with him, and he promised to do everything he could. He began applying for jobs everywhere. By the grace of God, his efforts paid off. He landed a good job. I was thrilled and asked him to bring his family again. This time, seeing that he was well employed and settled, my parents agreed, and we got married. Our early married life was peaceful. We were deeply in love and lived like an ideal couple. But then, Kuram received a promotion from his office and was posted to Dubai. After he left, I was completely alone. Lived with his elder brother, who was polite, intelligent, and responsible. He understood the delicacy of situations and always acted wisely. Because of his kind nature, I quickly grew comfortable around him. I always saw him as an older brother, and he treated me like a younger sister. Before leaving, Kuram entrusted me to his care, saying he'd return soon and take me with him. He told his brother Asen to look after me. I wasn't happy about Kuram going abroad, but it was important for his career, so he left. I spent days crying and missing him. After a few days, he called and promised he'd bring me to Dubai soon. I held on to that hope, but 5 years passed. I continued to live in his memories. Despite having a husband, I felt emotionally abandoned. He spoke to me less and less with time. His growing indifference became unbearable. For 5 years, I stayed faithful. I lived in the same house as my brother-in-law. San had once been married, but things didn't work out, and he got divorced. He now lived alone and spent most of his time focused on work. He rarely came out of his room, but whenever he did, he would handle all the grocery shopping for the house, and even help me with chores. I don't know what had come over me in recent days. I had lost sight of the path I was on and couldn't realize that I was heading in the wrong direction. To satisfy my own desires, I had chosen the wrong side. I wasn't even aware of what I was doing anymore. I believed I was managing everything in my own way. But in reality, I was being driven by a craving for physical satisfaction, and I was willing to do anything for it. One day I watched an obscene video, and something stirred in my mind. Without thinking, I got up and walked toward Hassan's room. My brother-in-law. It was around midnight when I knocked on his door and called out to him. My sudden presence at that hour startled him. He came to the door quickly, thinking I was in trouble or needed something urgent. He looked at me with concern and asked, "Is everything okay? Do you need anything? Are you feeling unwell?" But as he looked at me, as he noticed what I was wearing, my clothes were extremely tight and revealing. Making my body clearly visible, I softly said, "I'm fine. I just need you." He looked shocked and confused. "What do you mean you need me?" he asked. "That's when I made a sinful request," I said. "I can't take it anymore. Kuram isn't here, and you're the only one I have. I need you to bring me peace." I didn't even know what I was saying. I was blinded by desire. All I wanted was satisfaction. He stared at me with disbelief and said, "Do you even understand what you're saying? I'm like your elder brother." But I wasn't listening to anything. I took his hand and led him inside his room. Coincidentally, the camera on his laptop was on that night, perhaps recording without him realizing. Despite his continuous refusal, I kept getting closer to him and began behaving inappropriately. I had no idea that the laptop was capturing everything, clearly showing what I was doing. I was blinded by darkness, by evil. I couldn't see anything. Else, I had fully surrendered to sin. And maybe even he wanted to pull me back from the edge, but he seemed helpless. I kept pressing him toward wrongdoing, and maybe for him, that was unbearable. Now, whenever I knocked on his door, he would simply push me away. He stopped opening the door entirely. At night, he wouldn't answer, no matter what. During the day, he usually left the house before I woke up. He rarely stayed home, and whenever he did, he would quickly lock himself in his room as soon as he saw me. Meanwhile, I continued to watch for any chance to get near him. I didn't even know where I was going with all of this. I had no awareness of my thoughts, my actions, or their consequences. I had stopped caring about the image I had once protected. Whatever respect I had earned in that house, I had destroyed with my own hands. Maybe once I had been honored, maybe. Once I had held value in their eyes, but now I was the one destroying my own dignity. I was the one destroying my own image in front of people, not just people, even in front of a man I had once considered a brother. I was shameless. At that time, nothing was more important to me than my own satisfaction. I had developed an addiction to sin, as they say. The intoxication of sin feels pleasant in the beginning. It seems as though all the happiness in the world lies within that one act. But when it grows out of control, when desires overpower the mind, that is when the intoxication reaches its peak. And when that high begins to fade, that's when a person realizes what they've become. After that, you no longer have the face to meet anyone, not even yourself. By then, you're trapped so deep in the swamp of sin that no way out seems visible. I was now stuck in exactly that kind of swamp. Now that I had regained my senses, I didn't know how to escape it. How would I leave it behind? And even if I did, what then? That past would cling to me and haunt me, eventually destroying me. But I still had time. I needed to correct myself. The question was how. The only option I could see was to give Asen the property papers he demanded and to get myself out of this entire mess. I wanted to do it as soon as possible, but hurdles kept coming, one after another. Now another obstacle had appeared. I could only retrieve the property documents from the locker 2 days later. I told Asen. He agreed. Fine, he said. 2 days. But after that, I want the papers in my hands. I knew very well that Asen and Koram were not biological brothers from the same mother. They shared the same father, but had different mothers. Asen, being the elder, was always patient and wise. He used to guide Koram, give him advice, and offer support. But now, for some unknown reason, he wanted the documents to this house. I had heard their arguments before. Asen believed this house belonged to their father and should be equally divided, while Kuram insisted it was his personal property. I had heard this dispute between them many times. Now that Asen had this compromising video of me, he demanded the property papers because he knew they were under my name, gifted to me by Koram. That's why he asked for them from me, and I was ready to give them because I couldn't bear the thought of that video reaching Kuram. I loved my husband deeply, and I couldn't stand any distance, coldness, or separation from him. The mere thought of losing him made my heart sink and my breath tighten. That's why I felt completely helpless. From the way Asen demanded those documents, it was clear he either wanted to transfer the house to his name or gain power of attorney. This thought tormented me. I didn't know what kind of plan Asen was brewing in his mind. I couldn't understand anything clearly. I was just trying to hide my sin any way I could. Now, whenever I saw Asen, shame overwhelmed me. I felt like I was sinking into the earth. I avoided looking at him and would hide in my room. The time had come. Asen had finally cornered me. I was completely caught in the trap he had laid. Now I understood exactly what he wanted, and I had no choice but to hand over the documents. I didn't want to involve Karam at all. I didn't want to share anything with him. That day, I went out shopping with a friend. My heart was burdened with guilt and fear. I thought that spending time with her might help me breathe, distract me a little, and maybe give me the courage to open up and tell her everything. I thought a small change in environment would calm me down a little and help take my mind off the stress. That's why I had invited my friend to meet me. As soon as she arrived, I went out with her. It was evening, and I didn't return home until around 10 p.m. I had told her everything. Every detail about what I had done and what was happening with Asen. She advised me to do exactly what Asen had said, to give him the house documents, and free myself from this nightmare. Her words echoed in my mind. When I returned home, I noticed Asen's car parked in the driveway. I looked at it with unease, already dreading the fact that I might have to face him again. I felt ashamed of my actions, and the thought of making eye contact with him filled me with guilt. I gathered as much courage as I could and walked inside. From the entrance, I could see the living room and drawing room ahead. I quickly moved toward the drawing room where I could hear the low murmur of cheerful conversation. I was confused. Who was with Asen? Who else could be in the house with him? I wasn't ready to face Asen, but curiosity nudged me forward. Maybe there was a guest. Maybe I should go and greet them. I stepped closer toward the drawing room, and then, as I entered, I froze. Sitting there with Asen was Karam. For a moment, I couldn't recognize him. He had changed so much that it took me a second to realize who he was. A sharp jolt ran through me as I stepped back in shock. He wasn't supposed to be here, not now. It wasn't scheduled to come for another year. He had promised to return after completing 6 full years abroad. I couldn't understand how or why he had come back so early, and most of all, Hassan had shown him the video. My mind was racing. My eyes couldn't meet his. I didn't even glance toward him until Hassan smiled and said, "Come in, Manahil. Look, we have a surprise for you." My heart sank. Was this really a surprise, or had Asen revealed everything? My thoughts were consumed with panic. I feared Asen had already shown the video to Karam. That was the only thing I could think of in that moment. Then Karam turned toward me. He got up and walked straight to me. Without hesitation, he held my arms gently and said, "I couldn't stay away from you any longer. No matter how much I tried, I just couldn't bear the distance anymore. My love, I've missed you deeply, and I'm never letting you go again. You remember, don't you? I promised I'd come back for you. And here I am, ready to take you with me. Come on, let's have dinner together. Then we'll talk for hours, just like old times. In a few days, we'll leave for Dubai, and this time I won't be going alone. You'll be with me." There was deep love in his eyes, but I couldn't even look into them. I couldn't face him. I felt like the lowest kind of person. Here was a man who had loved me sincerely, and despite that, I had nearly dragged someone else into sin. But a fear still lingered inside me. What if Asen told him the truth? What if he showed him the video? What if everything came crashing down? I stood there silently, watching Karam smile at me. I didn't know what to make of it. For the first time in years, I was seeing my husband again, and despite everything, I longed to hug him. I walked toward him and held him tightly. A strange, calming warmth filled my chest. I leaned my head gently against his chest. Later that night, we had dinner together. During the meal, I couldn't look at Asen even once. T talked to us casually. even joked around and asked questions just like he used to before. I didn't understand what was happening. If he truly wanted nothing from me anymore, if he had no intention of exposing me to Khurram, then why had he asked for the house documents in the first place? Why was he now sitting here so calmly, laughing and chatting like nothing had ever happened? After Khurram's return, Asen never brought up the house again. I kept wondering about it. One whole week passed like that, quiet, confusing, and filled with questions. Our flight was scheduled at the end of that week. My visa had arrived and all the necessary documents were complete. We were finally ready to leave for Dubai. During those 7 days, I never once saw Asen and Khurram argue. I never heard Asen mention the video. He didn't talk about it to Khurram, and he didn't talk about it to me. Nothing. That's what puzzled me the most. Why had Asen gone silent? Why didn't he mention the house again? Why was he suddenly acting like none of this had happened when he knew everything, when he held the power to destroy me? So I gathered all the courage I had and decided to talk to Asen. He immediately agreed to speak with me. I said, "You never brought up the house documents again, nor did you try to blackmail me afterward." He placed his hand gently on my head and said, "Listen, Manahil, I've always considered you my sister from the bottom of my heart. I know how a person can be led astray by Satan's whispers. When someone loses their way, only those close to them can bring them back. I knew you were aware of the conflict between Khurram and me over this house, but I've let that conflict go now. I know this house belongs to both of us. So what if he registered it under your name? He never kicked me out. I've always stayed here like the elder of the family. You and Khurram never made me feel unwelcome. And as the elder, it's my duty to guide and protect my younger siblings. That's why I pointed you toward the house papers to make you stop and think." He continued, "And I convinced your husband that you deeply love him, that you can't live without him, and that you miss him and cry for him. When I told him how much you cried, he said he'd take care of you, but I insisted. I told him enough was enough. Come home and take your wife with you," I said. "Besides, I'm leaving for Nepal in a few days. I've been transferred there. And I couldn't leave you here in this condition. You were going down a dangerous path, and I had to distract you and bring you back to the right one. That's why I brought Khurram back too." His words made me feel deeply ashamed. I asked for his forgiveness, and he genuinely forgave me. He said that elders don't punish their younger ones. They explain, they guide, and they show the right path. Saying this, he touched my head once more and walked away. I stood there watching him, grateful and overwhelmed. After that, I returned to my room and joyfully began preparing to leave with my husband. I now understood that no matter how pure a person tries to be, they can still fall into Satan's traps. But even when we fall, true believers must never let the devil take full control. We must never commit the kind of acts I nearly did. I was fortunate to have someone like Asen in my life, an elder who understood my emotional state and brought me back from the edge. Not everyone is so lucky. Now I was ready to leave for Dubai with my husband. We both loved each other sincerely. And I thanked God that Khurram never found out about any of it. Our lives were about to start anew. When we reached Dubai, I felt a sense of wonder. The glowing city lights, the towering buildings, the modern culture, everything was new to me. Khurram had promised to show me around, and I hoped this journey would strengthen our bond even further. We started exploring the city together. Khurram took me to famous places like Burj Khalifa and Dubai Mall. Every new place carried a fragrance of hope and renewal. Each sight filled my heart with a feeling of joy and promise. As we settled into our life there, I began organizing my own schedule. I wanted to make the best use of my time, so I started participating in activities at a local community center. There, I made new friends and had the chance to interact with people from diverse cultures. My relationship with Khurram also began to heal and deepen. He listened attentively to everything I shared and supported me in every way. I could feel that he genuinely cared about my happiness, and that brought peace to my heart. But even amidst all of this, my past would occasionally revisit my thoughts. I would wonder, have I truly repented for my sins? Hassan's words often echoed in my mind, and I grew to appreciate his advice more and more. I realized that some lessons in life stay with us forever, no matter how hard we try to forget them. One evening, Khurram invited me to a special dinner. During that meal, he opened up about his goals and how hard he was working to improve his career. He told me he hoped we would soon see positive changes in our lives. His words filled me with happiness, and I thought to myself, this, truly, is the beginning of our new journey. In this way, I began to truly understand and embrace my life from a new perspective. This new chapter was an opportunity to redeem myself for the mistakes of my past, and I was determined to make the most of it. One evening, while preparing dinner with Khurram, I suddenly received a phone call. It was from Hassan. There was an uneasiness in his voice that immediately unsettled me. "Manahil," he said, "I need to talk to you about something important. Do you have a few minutes?" A strange fear crept into my heart. I glanced at Khurram, who was watching television, relaxed and unaware. I decided to tell him I had something urgent to take care of and that I was going out for a little while. When I met with Hassan, he gave me news that shook me to the core. Manahil Khurram's past is complicated. A tease. I'm sure you don't know this. But he was once involved in a situation that brought serious trouble into his life. My eyes widened. What? What are you saying? Khurram would never do such a thing. He's always been a good man. I know, Hassan replied gently, but I've seen some of his old videos. In one of them, he's with another girl. She was his former love, and she's come back. She's returned to Dubai. It felt as if my world flipped upside down. Had Khurram kept something from me? Was it true that he had someone else in his past? A wave of anxiety and fear washed over me. I tried to contain my emotions, but I knew I had to talk to Khurram. When I returned home, he smiled warmly at me, unaware of the storm brewing in my heart. But my eyes carried a question that wouldn't let me rest. "Khurram, have you hidden something from me?" I asked, gathering all my courage. He immediately held my hand and said, "Manahil, I want to share everything with you. But I'm scared of what you'll say. Did you have someone in your past, a girl you loved?" My voice trembled. My heartbeat quickened. He paused for a few moments, then took a deep breath. "Yes, there was a girl, but she's no longer part of my life. I went through a lot of pain because of her." His honesty stunned me. I wanted to know how deeply he still carried that past within him. Who was she? Is she still a part of your life? I pressed further. "No, she's not here," he said quietly, "but I believe she's coming back. I've been thinking about her, and it's starting to affect the life I have with you now." He closed his eyes as if lost in the memories of another time. Tears welled up in my eyes. "You matter so much to me, Khurram. I don't want your past to come between us." "Manahil, I never loved you," he said. "I saw you as a new journey, a chance to move forward, but now I have to confront my past." Those words struck like lightning. I felt the ground slip away beneath me. I tried to hold myself together, but my heart shattered. Now I understood that my new life, which I thought was a fresh beginning, had just taken a painful and complicated turn. Could I face this new truth, or would my past hand, now his, drag me into depths I could never escape?